Are you familiar with dowsing? It's using a pendulum as a tool to connect to your higher self. This is Robert Manni, host of Guys Radio. And this week, my special guest is Raymon Grace, lecturer and world-class expert on dowsing. It all begins on KCAA Radio here in Southern California, Wednesday evening at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 102.3, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM, the podcast, and my YouTube drop Thursday. Guys Radio, thanks for your support.
It's Guy Radio. Here's your host, Robert Manni.
Welcome to Guys Radio. This is your host, Robert Manni, welcoming you to the show where men and women can be at their best and everyone wins. Guys Radio, as I've said many times in the past, better men, better world, but it's really about being our best. My job is to bring out guests that are going to inform you, inspire you, empower you, and hopefully through their journeys, their stories, their insights, get you to think a little bit, feel a little bit, and maybe even act. And I will also add my musings and insights to clarify some of what the guests are talking about and also just give you some of my own perspective. I mean, after all, I have interviewed now over 500 guests from many different fields, whether it be celebrity, sports, wellness, fitness, spirituality, writing, media, etc. So I'm here for you. I'll do my very best to make sure that the information is clear and that you get something out of it. And if you so choose to use it, great. And if you say, not for me, that's cool too. It's up to you. I'm just here serving it up. So anyhow, we've got a great show today. We've got a really interesting guy. His name is Raymon Grace. And he is I'm not sure if he would actually refer to himself as a shaman, but he's a teacher, he's a lecturer, he's an author, and he's one of the world's foremost experts on what is called dowsing. And dowsing, if you're familiar with, a little pendulum, you hold the pendulum on a chain and it goes back and forth and left and right and around to clockwise and counterclockwise. And Raymond's become an expert on that and uses it as a tool for intention. So you can send energy, you can receive energy, you can eliminate toxic energy, you can add and send positive energy. And it's a very simple tool, and it's very effective. And interesting how Raymond came to me. I have a friend on Facebook who I've never met, but a Facebook friend nevertheless, and he sent me information on Raymond, and I wrote back, and the email went to Raymond. I mentioned that I had just had emergency surgery. I had an emergency appendectomy. We'll get to that in a minute. And Raymond wrote to me and said, hey, I got this. It sounds like you could use some help. And I was in bad shape. And this is right after the operation. I said, sure. And I'm usually not that open where I'll just let anybody send me energy or whatever. But I got the vibe that he was a good man. And he sent me some positive energy. And over time, my health improved. And I was just very appreciative of his kindness. So I invited him on the show. We had a couple of conversations before the show, and then we spoke recently, and it was an interesting conversation. He's an eclectic, unique, authentic guy. He's a real guy's guy. He lives out in Western Virginia, not in West Virginia, but he lives in the state of Virginia, out in the woods and the mountains, and he's just a real cool guy. And I'm glad I got to know him, and he taught me some things about dowsing and about intention and energy and working with water and other things. And he's a cool dude, and I think you're really going to enjoy my conversation with him. But let me just spend a few minutes, because I've mentioned this a few times in the past. I did have this emergency appendectomy a couple of weeks ago, and I learned so much from the experience and the healing process. It was, frankly, one of the, if not the toughest, the toughest experience I have ever been through in my life. For a 2-week period, because of what happened, I had my appendix taken out, and it could have burst at any minute. So the doctor, I got to the hospital, they went right into surgery. After about 2 hours waiting, I went right into surgery. Doctor got it out. Wonderful surgeon. I lucked out, and there was a lot of cleanup because the appendix had gotten infected, and the risk was that the infection could spread in your blood and could cause serious issues. So I was given some heavy-duty antibiotics, which I needed to knock out all the infection. And so for the next 7 days, I was taking these mega antibiotics as well as some painkillers and stuff like that, and it kicked my butt. And I was nauseous. I was feeling horrible. I had night sweats. When I went into the hospital, I hadn't eaten for a while because I was in such discomfort. Between the fluids that they gave me in the hospital through IV, in 1 day, I gained 10 pounds. Since then, I've gotten home. I've lost 20 pounds so from that number. So I'm at the weight I want to be at, but I wasn't expecting to get there this way. One of the biggest lessons I learned, though, was I am so glad that I have been taking care of myself. I did 75 push-ups the day before my surgery. I ran 7 miles the day before that. I swam 20 laps the day before that, and I continue to do a lot of exercise, a lot of walking, just do a lot of physical stuff, a lot of meditation, eating organic, good foods. And I know that the fact that I kept my body so strong was a huge factor in my healing, because this was devastating, and I was really down for the count. A couple of nights I was had so much sweating and detoxifying that I drenched my bed like 4 times during the night. Had to actually get up and change the sheets twice. Just unbelievable. And it took a lot of time to heal. And I found that, and my doctor corroborated with me. He said, listen, I had to give you those, we had to save you, so we had to give you those super duper antibiotics. But what antibiotics do, they kill all the bad stuff, but they also kill all the good stuff. So over time, I've had to kind of rebuild my gut bacteria through pretty ample doses of probiotics at specific times, and then vitamins and all of that. But it really taught me to be appreciative, because I've had to really rebuild every aspect of who I was. And that means walking and thinking and using the bathroom and everything else you can imagine. It was like starting over, everything. And I stuck with it, and I had a wonderful team. My wife has been so loving and kind to me, and my son's been great, and my doctor's great, and Raymon was great. And I'm just so appreciative, and I realize that you can't take anything for granted, because you could lose everything in a moment. One day you're here, next day you're gone, or whatever facilities that you have. So you have to stay positive. You have to remain appreciative, and it's really important that you take care of yourself, so when you get one of these situations that comes up out of the blue, that you're prepared. Like, I wasn't thinking like, well, if I have an emergency appendectomy, I'll be in great shape. No, I wasn't thinking that at all. But it just so happened that through discipline and time and repetition over and over again, you can take care of yourself. You make the right choices in your lifestyle, what you consume, what you eat, what you drink, etc. And I really learned a lot. And now I'm back. I got a clean bill of health. I'm back. I'm down like 10 pounds from where I was before this happened. I'm feeling great. I'm not as strong as I was. I'm a little leaner, but I'll rebuild all of that. And I'm not planning to put another 10 pounds back on, but I'm feeling good. And I'm just taking it slow, day by day, getting stronger and stronger. And, because of this COVID and the pandemic and all of that, I've made sure I've avoided people outside, because, I've got a situation where my body's been weakened. But also, I've had the time, because things have slowed down out there, to work on myself and get better. So overall, I'm just filled with gratitude. And that was my lesson there. Now, I'm not going to talk about this again. I'm just going to say one last time, take care of yourself, because you never know what type of surprises may be around the bend, and you want to be in the best shape you can for those surprises. So, Guys Radio, your host, Robert Manni. I'm so thrilled to be here. We've got a great guest, Raymon Grace, and we're going to get started with our show right now.
It's Guys Guy Radio.
Okay, Guys Radio, I have a very special guest today. His name is Raymon Grace, and I want to put a little context about who he is and how we got together. As I've mentioned on a previous show, I was stricken with an emergency appendectomy, and it really took me down for the count. I was like way down, and I got my emails crossed up with a mutual friend, and ended up writing a response, and it went to Raymond. And he was so kind that he wrote back to me and said, "Hey, it looks like you could use some help." And he did some work on me when I was asleep, and I didn't even know him. And I'm feeling much, much better now. And I thank Raymond for his kindness. But I wanted him to be on the show because Raymond is a friend to humanity and he's a friend to the planet Earth. Let me tell you a little bit about him and then we'll get into a conversation. Raymond Grace, founder and president of Raymon Grace Foundation. He's a dowser, and we'll get into that. A lecturer, author of 3 books, The Future is Yours, Do Something About It, Techniques That Work for Me, and Seasons of April. He's created over 60 DVDs sharing information learned over the past 40 years. The books have been printed in English, Chinese. His work is being used in several countries for improving water and other areas of self-improvement. He's got a newsletter, which I'm signed up for, that reaches 142 countries. He's been all over the media, particularly Coast to Coast AM, many times on there, and his work has been recently recognized by the Virginia Senate. He's just doing great work. He's a down-to-earth, plain-spoken person who tells it as he sees it, and he's just a real nice guy, and he's a real man, and he's a guy's guy, and I'm so glad to welcome Raymond Grace to Guys Radio.
Thank you, sir. Glad to be here.
So let's start at the beginning. Why is energy, because you work so much with energy, why is the energy increasing on the planet right now? Why are we in such a position with our planet where energy is such a factor like it's never been before? I mean, it's always been a factor, but now it seems to be, it's really doing the backflips, if you will.
Well, honestly, I can't tell you why. I can just say that it is. I have been measuring energy for 22 years now. And I have seen the energy first slowly start to rise. Now, when I say I've seen it, let me put it this way. I have a scale, which may not mean anything to anyone but me, to where I measure energy in increments of thousands. Call them units, call them whatever you might want to call them. I do not know that this is a scientific measurement, but it tells me what I need to know. And I would see the energy rise for a while, level off like a plateau, then after a while rise again. This last week, I have noticed it up higher than ever. So I offer an energy clearing for people anywhere in the world. And I started out doing this once a month. And I thought, well, no, we need to give the people more than that. So I'll do it once a week. Then when the virus broke out, I think, okay, they got to have more help. So I started doing it twice a week. Now I do it practically every day. So what I do, I measure the energy of the group without actually knowing who they are. And then I do my clearing work. And then I measure the energy again. And it just keeps rising. I mean, tremendously high. And I get real good feedback from the folks that things are going better at home. Sometimes they get a better job. Sometimes they get along better with their families. One lady wrote to say that her whole neighborhood and her subdivision was vandalized, all except her house. So, yeah, we think it works.
Now, one of your techniques, Raymond, is dowsing. And for those who aren't familiar with it, it's really working. You work with a pendulum. You might have seen it. It goes back and forth or around in circles. Why don't you tell us, our listeners, what dowsing is and why it's important and why it's such an effective, easy, simple to use tool?
Well, in my definition, dowsing is simply the use of a tool that tells us what we already know. One of my friends that I learned from early on, Walt Woods, who was president at one time of the American Society of Dowsers, described it this way: that dowsing is mother's intuition with a readout device, and the readout device being a pendulum. Well, I use a 45 caliber bullet on a chain for a pendulum, and it really doesn't matter what you use. I just prefer to use that. But there's nothing magical about the pendulum. I want to make that very clear. A lot of folks think the type of pendulum they get is going to make them either better or worse. That's not true, or at least it's true. It would be only true if they believed it. I don't really believe anything like that. I think I tell people you can tie a nut on a string and do the same thing with it as you can a very expensive pendulum. So all it is a tool. I do not really know why it works, but I would liken it to a hammer for a carpenter, a trowel for a bricklayer, or a wrench for a mechanic. It's tools to get a job done. However, the wrench, the trowel, and the hammer are pretty much a necessity. You can actually learn to dowse without using a pendulum, simply by using your mind.
Mm-hmm.
And that's where I like to get people to the point where they don't really need any tools except their mind. For years, I have been working with people to show them how to use more of their mind, because if we use more of our mind, we can accomplish more. So dowsing has been used for probably centuries, and generally for finding water. Well, I'm not a water dowser. I have found very little bit of water because I've had very few requests for it. What I do mostly is clear the energy in homes, businesses, schools, and various places like this. And I do strictly energy work. And I have ways of measuring what the energy in a home or a person or an office is. And we find out what the problem is, then we work to fix it. Now, the good thing about this is we can do this, as far as I know, anywhere on the planet. When I first got into dowsing back in 1993, those folks that taught me were good people, and I was grateful for the information, but they had limiting belief systems. They thought they had to be physically on site to do something, and they had a lot of rules to go by. Well, if you listen to my video that I made for the West Coast conference there, you notice that the first thing I said was I broke all the rules. And I think that's why I was able to accomplish more, because I did not limit myself as to what could be done. And a lot of time folks will ask me, can you do something? Well, the honest answer is I don't know. I don't ever know if I can do anything until I try. But I think the reason that I've accomplished things is not because I knew how, but because I didn't know I couldn't. So I have done things that the dowsing world, I don't think, realized could be done. I'd like to share some of these stories a little later on.
Let's talk about your background and how did you talk about the human mind is something that's very powerful, and people have not really tapped into the power that we have, and that's a theme that we go over on the show very frequently. And also your path through dowsing. How did you learn it? And as part of because you were a bricklayer, you were in the armed forces, and when did you make the decision to follow the path you're on now? And how did that come about?
Well, I heard about a dowsing conference over in North Carolina. Now, I had heard of people finding water with forked sticks and showing the local people where to drill a well. And that was my limit of my knowledge about it. I didn't really know how they did it. So I go to a dowsing conference and listen to the speakers, talk to people. They're very friendly bunch of people, folks. And I came to the realization these people have something more than they realize. They're out here finding buried water veins or water lines and various things, but they don't dig them up to prove they found them. So this information isn't really all that useful. And I'm thinking, if there is something within the human mind that can find a vein of water several hundred feet under the earth, then what else can we do with our mind? So I just started out to see what all could be done. And I started out by clearing the what we would call negative energies in homes and offices. And I found out it worked. And how do I know it worked? Well, I got good feedback. The folks that had been feeling bad and grouchy in the office cheered up. And all I did was change the energy. Energy, Einstein said it this way: energy is everything. That's all there is to it. Oh, he was right. And he made another statement that I use quite often: energy follows thought. And I always tell people when they ask me, can I do something? They're asking for themselves. I get emails, can I do something with dowsing? My answer is always the same: try it and see. That's how I learned. Yep. So you don't ever know what you can do until you try. But anyway, I started out with the dowsing and I found out it worked. Now, I was a slow learner. Please don't think that I learned this all at once. I didn't. It took me 3 years before I actually had any decent success with it. I was just too hard-headed to stop. And that's the only thing that got me to where I am. I didn't know I couldn't do it. And I was just determined to keep going until I did something. And when I started seeing results with things, then I got really enthused. And I wrote a little simple book on dowsing. Actually, I wrote one called The Future Is Yours, Do Something About It. That's about how to use your mind. And then I wrote another one called Techniques That Work for Me, which is a very simple little very plain and simple book. No frills, just do this, this, and this. And those books have done quite well. And I wanted to make everything simple. I find that most things are made too complicated. And when folks are in my class and they use a lot of big words and they talk and talk and talk, and I don't really know what they're saying, I have a standard answer for them. You went to the wrong school and you stayed way too long. Keep it simple. So one thing just led to another. I started getting invited to speak at various dowsing conferences, which I was kind of surprised that they would even invite me, but they did. And then it just started expanding. Then we started making films on this because we figured we could reach more people faster. So we reached 142 countries. And that last time we took a count on that was 7 years ago. So I don't know if we've gained any since then or not.
Part of your training also was, first of all, it's Guys Radio. Our special guest is Raymon Grace. He's an incredible person and he's a real friend to humanity. I'm so glad he's on the show. You studied with, as I have, Jose Silva's studying. How did that impact your path, if you will, and your knowledge base for doing what you do now? Or did it not have an effect?
Well, Jose Silva was the founder of Silva Mind Control down the road of Texas, and he was a very remarkable man. And I took the class from one of his instructors a few years before I ever met him. Matter of fact, about 14 years before I ever met him. And then I went and studied with him, became one of his lecturers. And Jose had some really good information, which I used, and I usually adapt everything to my way of thinking, my way of speaking. And I think I was a lecturer for him for maybe about 5 years. And I have incorporated what I have learned with mind development and with dowsing. And also, I didn't mention in the information I gave you, but I've also studied some Native American shaman training, wilderness survival, things of that nature. So I just incorporated the best of everything and kind of rolled it all into one and put my own flavor to it. And it works pretty good. I really wanted to keep everything simple to where anybody that could get a driver's license could understand it.
Let's get back to dowsing for a moment, because I think that would be a very easy tool for our listeners to participate in if they so choose to. So all you need is a little pendulum. As Raymond, you mentioned, you use a bullet on a chain. I use a little crystal on a chain, and basically you will. Why don't you do it? Why don't you take us through how to dowse?
Okay, I didn't know you were going to ask that one, so I'm going to give just a very brief summary. I simply hold up the chain about 1 inch to 2 inches above the pendulum and ask it to give me a yes, give me a no. And if it's a yes, it will swing to you and away from you. If it is no, it'll swing right to left. And you have to train your pendulum. But I tell people, avoid asking yes or no questions if you possibly can. Why? Because they're insufficient. Now, sometimes you can't get by without it, but if you can, ask on a percentage scale. And I have a dowsing chart that's available on my website, raymondgrace.us. And you folks out there listening, feel free to go there and get it printed out. I just wanted to make it available to whoever wanted it, and no charge for it. And it's on a percentage scale for the most part. Now, just looking at the chart itself is not going to help you all that much without some directions. That's why I made, I think, 6 DVDs and 1 CD that are a summary of a 2-day class that I teach. So the chart is just something that goes along with that. And I tell people to ask a question of that can be answered with a percentage scale of 0 to 100% plus or minus. And that is far more accurate than asking yes and no questions. And that's, I think, the biggest problem most folks make is they just don't ask the right question. And if you don't ask the right question, obviously you can't get the right answer. For example, if you ask, is a soft drink good for you, you'll probably get a no. If you ask, is gasoline flavored diesel fuel good for you, you'll get a no, but it won't tell you the difference. So if you ask what's the result of this upon my body, you will get a numeric value. A soft drink is probably going to be about a minus 45 or so, 45%, dowsing on a percentage scale. And of course, a gasoline and diesel fuel drink is going to be probably off the chart below 100 because it's going to kill you. So I think that's one of the mistakes folks make is not really asking the right question.
You also mentioned, and I think this is super helpful, that you can, beyond just get the yes, no, and what is the result of, you can actually remove, and through your intention, there's a possibility of removing toxicity or toxic energy, negative energy from a situation, area, whatever, or adding positive energy to someone, something, yourself, or whatever. And you suggested try it in the morning. I did it this morning. I got to tell you, I felt great when I did it. So could you talk to us a little bit about that process, Raymond?
Well, I'll be glad to. I really don't believe that we're limited by space because I do work in Europe and Australia and sometimes Asia. And so that tells me that distance is not a factor. So whatever I want to clean up, for example, schools, I've cleaned up a number of schools, and the word I get back from the parents that were in my class and that asked me to clean the school up, the kids do better, the teachers are friendlier. It just generally improves things. I've cleaned up a lot of offices, homes. See, one thing I want to impress upon people here is energy is contagious. And right now, we've got a lot of negative energy on this planet. People are scared. They're angry, they panic, there's so much uncertainty. Well, all this stuff is contagious. Now, if you live out in the mountains like I do, it doesn't really have much effect on you because nobody's around close to me. But if you live in a city where you're surrounded with thousands or hundreds of thousands of people, yeah, it's going to have a very negative effect upon you. And energy can go out for miles, and I'm not even convinced of what it can go all the way around the world. I can't really say that, but the fact that I can do something for someone in Europe, as I did this morning, and they feel it instantly, that tells me that we can work on any project anywhere in the world. I'll give you an example here. I was working with a Canadian Manni several years ago up on the Arctic Circle in an Eskimo village. And the crime rate was excessively high, and actually it was dangerous to be in law enforcement up there, quite dangerous. Well, I wanted to help this Manni give her a safer place to work. So I cleaned up the energy there. What I had to do a lot of exorcisms on the people. They were possessed. There was a lot of negative emotions like anger there, and I cleaned that up. And the violent crime, and I have a letter on official Royal Canadian Mounted Stationery saying that the violent crime dropped to zero. Now, they still had petty crime. There's people still steal something or something like that.
All right.
But the violence dropped to zero.
Okay. So it's through the power of intention. You use dowsing as a tool for our listeners on a day-to-day basis if they're dowsing. For instance, if I'm not getting along with somebody and I want to send them positive energy, so the dowser would go to clockwise, positive energy, and a particular rhythm for a certain amount of time. Two questions. One is, how do we, well, in this case, I guess our intention is there to make it go a certain way, because I was going to ask about how not to impact the dowsing tool with our thoughts too much and let it do its work. But in this particular case, when we're sending energy, is it important or necessary for the person on the receiving end subconsciously to accept what you're sending them?
It is necessary that they accept it because I think humans have free will and they can accept or reject. And I was asked yesterday to work on someone, and I said it's useless because they don't want my help. And how did I learn that? I said, what is their level of receptivity to my work? It was zero.
Okay.
There's no point wasting my time.
Got it. And conversely, you can do take out a negative situation, which would be the dowser turns counterclockwise. So if you wanted to take away or diminish a negative relationship with somebody, you would go to the left, correct?
No, that's correct. I use the term neutralize, and if you want to neutralize fear, anger, grief, anything like that, it's going to run counterclockwise. If you want to send somebody peace, love, happiness, fun, it'll go clockwise.
Okay. So what are the best practices? And then we can move off from dowsing, but I thought it's just such an important tool that people can work with. What's the best way for somebody gets up in the morning? What's the best way to use dowsing to kind of start their day?
Well, I'm going to tell you, you don't even have to use dowsing in the morning to start your day. You use intent. And that is to give thanks for whatever you want and whatever you have. For example, I give thanks for a good home, good family, good friends, good health. Since I live out here in the mountains, I've got my own water supply in the backyard. I give thanks to the spirit of the water. I really believe that giving thanks for what we have it makes us feel better. It just makes our life go better. And by giving thanks for what we would like to have, we attract it to us. I tell people, don't ever ask for anything. Yeah, because if we ask, we're saying we don't have it. If we give thanks, we're acknowledging that we do have it. It makes a lot of difference because, see, your body and your brain listen while your mouth is talking. So you don't ever want to beat yourself down. You want to be able to accept compliments, give compliments to other people. And people ask me how I maintain my energy. Well, there's two ways. One is I have an attitude, and there's very little difference between an attitude and a belief system. And a belief system being the dominant factor that everything that happens to us. I have an attitude of whatever I do for other people, I receive the benefit of. And then people say, well, how do you protect your energy? Well, the answer there is simple. I stay out of bars and churches.
That's great. So
I don't mind you laugh, but
okay.
it's true.
I hear you. So just the last question on dowsing, going back to the point I made. When you're dowsing, it's important to try to step away from yourself when you're dowsing to get the most effective response, because a lot of times you can impact the dowsing by, you actually just putting your intention into it to give yourself a yes, no, or what is the result of answer.
You
know what I mean?
Can, and that's a more difficult thing to overcome. What I do, and I like to give people good news. If I'm going to work for somebody, I prefer to tell them what they would like to hear. But what they want to hear is not always the truth. So what I do, I just say, I want to give thanks here to remove my and their beliefs, thoughts, and opinions, and get the truth, whether we like it or not. That's just the way I work.
Okay. Now,
I'm not going to tell you the proof, but I'm going to say it helps.
Okay. So, Guys Radio, my special guest, Raymon Grace, you do so much great work with water. Why don't we just spend a moment or two on water and the importance of it and why you were drawn to doing that work, and then we can wrap up.
I'll be glad to talk on water. Back when my little girl was born, I got to thinking about the kind of world she might grow up in. And I realized that she couldn't grow up in the same world that I did. And I had done some reading, and what got my attention was that only 2% of the water on this planet was fit to drink. And I'm thinking, well, in another 20, 30, 40, 50 years, that number is not going to get any higher unless somebody does something about it. So I decided to do something about it. I decided I'm going to see if I can clean up some of the water here on this planet. I didn't have a clue how I was going to do it, but I've never really let things like that stand in my way. So I started out with energizing one simple little cup of water. Why? Because that was all I knew how to energize at the time. And then I found that I could energize water at a distance. I'll be very brief on this, but I had energized some water up in Canada that had been tested and shown to be the energy had increased, and there was a swimming pool there. And I was asked, if we put your water in the swimming pool, will it change the energy? And I said, well, you check the energy of the pool. By checking energy, we checked how far out the energy of the water would be how far out could we detect the energy of the water? And it was about 3 feet. So I did not pour my glass of water in there. I stuck my finger in the glass, got one drop on the end of my finger, put that in the water, in the pools, spun it around a little bit, and with my hand, just wash it, moving my hand back and forth in the water. And then had the people test it again, and the energy went out from 3 feet to 40 feet. So I got real excited about this. And I started working to energize water wherever I went. So I was traveling through Saskatchewan back in June of '02. And my buddy and I had an invitation to stop and spend the night with family there. And when I got there, I found out why they invited us. He said, I have a well here that has a lot of arsenic in it. And I wondered if you could help me. And I said, I know absolutely nothing about arsenic. He said, well, you can't energize water and pour it down in the well because it has a sealed top on it. I said, well, let me just go out and talk to the water. So when I finished, I said, I don't know what I've done, but get the water tested again by the Canadian Board of Health, or whatever the appropriate terminology is, because it had tested 46 parts per million of arsenic, which was well above the accepted safe level, which I believe was 10 parts per million. Well, I get a very enthusiastic phone call about a month later saying, I had the water tested. There's barely a trace of arsenic. He said, you took 90% of the arsenic out of the water. I said, well, I'm glad to hear that. Thank you for letting me know. Have it tested again and let me know. The next time he called, they couldn't even find any arsenic. Now, I heard that was impossible, but I didn't know that. So that really encouraged me that I could help a lot of other people with water. As a matter of fact, the other morning, I worked with the water in your house. I worked in London twice in the last month, 2 separate cases. Let's see, I don't know, just a few other places, I guess. I don't really keep up with this, but I've cleaned up water to some degree, and frankly, it's been a small degree, on 6 continents, everywhere except Australia. Not Australia, but Antarctica. I've cleaned up water in Australia before. Why does it work? Probably because I believe it will. Right. I set a goal to clean water up on this planet the best I could and to teach other people how to do it. So I have a film that shows people how to do this. Not only that, I put something in that film. I make films a little different than most folks do. I put something in that film that if you play it and direct it to a container or possibly even a body of water, that it will be the same as if I were standing there doing it. Now, I got a story to tell you. This lady is from Salem, Oregon. She was in my class a little over a year ago, and she said, in May of this year, it was announced on the radio that the water was going to be quarantined. We could wash the car with it. We could water the lawn, but we couldn't drink it because due to an algae bloom or something. And the water from Salem, Oregon came from a lake up in the mountains. She drives up to the lake, takes a recording of me energizing water, plays it with the intent, and that's the key word, played it with the intent that it would affect that lake. 2 days later, the quarantine was lifted. And not only that, I told that story on a show somewhere, I don't remember where, and someone out there heard me and actually sent me a newspaper clipping of the Salem, Oregon paper telling about how that it had been done. Of course, they had no clue that I did it. I don't think they knew what happened. There's no reason they would. But what I'm saying is we were able to create a film that would affect water wherever it was played. And that, I figured that's the best way I can reach people around the world.
Okay, so we're with Raymond, and he's going to, for our listeners, he's going to do some dowsing to help us all out there. So go ahead, Raymond.
Okay, folks. At the time this is being filmed, there's a lot of fear, anger, uncertainty, and all that out there. And I put together a little package deal. As a matter of fact, if you go to my website and look at my YouTube channel and get the one that says ORI, that's Ozark Research Institute. I made a little film for them, so I'm going to give you an abbreviated version of it right here. So I put a package together of problems that most people have around the world, and I called it a problem package. I did this just to simplify the language. So for all you folks listening out there, I'm going to do this. I want to neutralize what I call the problem package on all the listeners. Now, if I've been able to change the taste of water to people listening on a radio show like I did on Coast to Coast, surely to goodness I can do this for you folks. So I'm just going to spin it around here like this. And it's going counterclockwise really fast, like an airplane propeller. And it is my intent to neutralize the normal things. There's about 10 things I've got in this problem package, so I won't go over them all, take too much time. But I want to neutralize the negative effect of that upon you folks with the hopes that whenever you listen to this, that you're going to feel a difference by the time you finish doing it. And right now it's slowing down, as Robert can see here, because we're on Skype together. And it's slowing down and stopping. And this will generally raise the people's energy wherever they are on the planet. So hopefully you folks felt that.
Thank you. I felt it. Anything else you want to touch on, Raymond? Any advice for our listeners?
Well, you're welcome to take a look at my website, raymondgrace.us.
Okay.
And I've got a number of free videos out there you folks are welcome to watch if you like.
Okay.
That will tell you quite a bit about dowsing and what we do.
Got it.
And we do an energy clearing. If you want our help on that, just feel free to contact the website if you want to anything. And I get to the mail the best I can. Sometimes I get covered up for several days, but the best I can.
Well, you're doing great work. You have great intention. You're an original. You're real. And you helped me, and I'm very appreciative. And I'm so glad you came on to Guys Radio. So thank you so much, Raymon Grace.
And thank you for having me as a guest. Been enjoyable.
Robert Manni's The Guy's Guide to Love is a fast-paced tale of flawed men and savvy women competing for love, sex, power, and money in the city where they play for keeps. It's the men's successor to Sex and the City. The Guy's Guide to Love is a sexy romp through the fast-moving, high-stakes world of Madison Avenue. Available now on Amazon and wherever books are sold. It's Guys Guy Radio.
Okay, what a fascinating interview with a really unique, authentic guy, Raymon Grace. Wow, he's one of a kind, and I'm so glad he came on Guys Radio. So let's talk a little bit about kind of what we learned from Raymon. And I think the number one thing is that what he was saying is it's all about intention. So regardless of the tools you use, whether it be dowsing or through meditation, or you could do EFT or Reiki or whatever, the most important thing throughout any type of metaphysical practice is really your intention and coming from your heart space, frankly. And let me get into a couple of aspects of dowsing, because for many people, they know the whole thing with the pendulum, and I have one. It's just a little crystal on a chain, and I hadn't used it for a while, but knowing that Dawson was going to be my guest, I pulled it out and I watched some of his videos, and I started practicing. And since we kind of zipped through it when Dawson was on air, let me kind of give a quick review of what I picked up from Dawson and how I use a dowser or the pendulum. So what dowsing is really is just using a pendulum to get some type of guidance from your higher self. So what I do is I hold it out in front of me. I put my index finger and my thumb at the top of the chain, and then I ask it, are you coming from Divine God's white light? So I want to make sure it comes from a spiritual place and it's not some type of lower entity, if you will. And if it gives me a yes, which we set up that the yes would be away from me and to me, back and forth and back and forth, then I will proceed. I will also ask it to give me a no, which is kind of back and forth, left to right, right to left. And then I will begin what I do is a morning ritual. And I have found this to be so helpful to me. And if you have the time to do it, if you can put in, 10 to 15 minutes, just get up, set your alarm, whatever, for 10 or 15 minutes earlier than you usually do if you have to get to work and you have to get your kids ready and for remote learning, whatever it is. And start with a brief meditation. I do something called zero balancing, and I do it for about 5 to 10 minutes. That's all, and it really quiets myself. Obviously, most of us are very triggered to the second we wake up, we reach for the phone, we pull it up and go to Instagram or Facebook or whatever news outlet and check your messages and all of that and your emails. And before you even are out of bed, you're getting bombarded with a lot of rajasic information, and it's not a very peaceful way to start the day. So I like to start before I do anything. I'll sit up on the edge of the bed and I'll do my 5 to 10 minute meditation. I started with 5 minutes and then I increased it to 10 minutes. After I'm done with that, what I do is I then take out my little pendulum and I say good morning and I start doing some dowsing. I say, give me a yes. And I say, give me a no. And then what I do is I use my intention. And what I attempt to do, and Raymond spoke about this, and that is you don't want to force your thoughts onto the pendulum to make it go the way you want to go. You want to see if you can kind of step out of it and let it work on its own. So what I do is I will use it for some clearing. So first I ask it to clear away any toxic energy within myself, within my aura, within my space, within my home, and the pendulum will kind of spin around slowly and then more quickly to the left, counterclockwise, and I let it go until it kind of runs out of steam, and then I will let it settle. And then I will ask for, this is at least what I do, some positive energy and healing to myself and my family and my space and my home. So it goes around to the right and around and around and around clockwise. From there, I will think of some specific situations or individuals. Some maybe I don't get along with. I want to send them positive energy. So I ask for positive energy to be sent to somebody. Now, usually it's accepted and the pendulum will go around clockwise. But I've noticed at times, if you're really not getting along with somebody or they don't want to hear from you, it's not going to really work because their higher self, if you will, doesn't want to hear from you, is putting up a block, and that's like they don't want to be bothered with you. And if that's the case, that's the case. All you can do is do what you can do with good intention. I'll also send positive healing energy to people I know who are ill, old, have some type of disease, are in discomfort or loneliness or whatever it is, and send them individually positive energy. And I usually find that this works really well. And then I will also, as Raymond suggested, ask what would be the result of a specific question. I do 1 or 2 a day. So I could do something like, is it a good idea? What would be the result of me and my family continuing to live in where we are in San Diego for the next 6 months before moving or not moving? And get a read on that and see which way it goes. And then I might ask another question about my work or about some of the things my wife's working on. And so it goes. So it's very helpful. It's not a big deal. I don't take it too seriously. And I will also, again, clear to the left, counterclockwise. I'll make sure, try to clear from the room and my space from any 5G or any type of radiation, stuff like that. And just use it as a positive tool. And basically, again, as Raymond said, it's all about intention. Do you want to do it? Great. You don't want to do it? Don't. I'm just saying this has been my experience. It's worked for me. It's a very easy, short practice. All I do is get up 15 minutes earlier And by the time I finish with that to start my day, I'm usually in a pretty good mood and pretty clear space and feel pretty peaceful and appreciative. I also make sure that I express gratitude for a lot of different things that have happened. Sometimes bad stuff is actually good stuff underneath, and sometimes good things are just good things. So I appreciate everything and do my best to make the best of it. So I hope you can consider that and see what you can do to factor in intention into your day-to-day life. The other thing that Raymond mentioned is kindness, the power of kindness, and sending positive energy to people. So keep that in mind. It's all about helping out people and sending positive energy and light and being a beacon of positive things to the world instead of negativity, because there's plenty of that out there. So Guys Radio, we're here every Wednesday evening on KCAA at 8 p.m. Pacific Time, 102.3, 106.5 FM, 1050 AM. The show rebroadcasts every Sunday on KCAA at 6 p.m. Pacific Time. The podcast and my YouTube channel, Robert Manni, Guys TV, posts every Thursday. We've gotten 430 plus shows now available, and we are now have expanded our platform. I'm just going to read this one last time so you know where to find us. This is basically anywhere that you can, anywhere that you use podcasting or listening to podcasts, rather, you can find us. So I'll just zip through this list one last time, and we've got hundreds of thousands of streams coming through. Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Podbeam, Podimo, Pod Paradise, Backtrack, Spotify, Pandora, Mixcloud, Listen Notes, Podplay, Castbox, Luminary, iHeartRadio, TuneIn, Radio Public, Podchaser, Podtail, Owltail, Player.fm. So we are pretty much everywhere where you can get your podcast. So I don't think you're going to have any trouble finding us. Also, my website is robertmanni, MANNI.com. Lots of content there. There's over 300 plus blog posts, everything through my guys lens about life, love and the pursuit of happiness, relationships, holidays, family, friends, health, fitness, diet, wellness, spirituality, just being a good guy, being a guy's guy, and treating people respectfully. So you can check that out. You can also download 3 free chapters of my novel, The Guy's Guide to Love, about 2 dudes in advertising competing for love, sex, power, and money in New York City, the market where they play for keeps. It's about strong women and flawed men, and it's a rom-com, really, but it has meaning behind it. It's a story about something. Very proud of the work. You can read the reviews. Check it out on Amazon. You can get a physical book or the digital book, and it's doing well. And I'm very appreciative of our listeners buying copies, because since we've been doing the show on KCAA, we're selling a lot more books, and it's a lot of fun, and it really is the source material for everything Guys Guy. You can also find me, Robert Manni, all over social media, on Instagram, Facebook. I've got a personal page and an author page, and also Twitter, and again, YouTube. We've got most of our shows on YouTube now, and we're moving to video for YouTube next month. And we've got a very special guest, a TV talent that I'm sure you're familiar with, and we're going to kick off that effort later in November on our YouTube channel, which is at Robert Manni, and we call it Guys TV. So that's where we are. Guys Radio. We're here to help out. We're here to inform you, inspire you, empower you, and get you to think, feel, and hopefully act, and just bring you information that you may not have time to dig up on your own. That's what I do. I search and qualify all the guests. I develop the interviews. I have a wonderful team. Chris Marcello, Ryan Gilpatrick. Ryan's been with me for a long time. Chris has been with me the last year. They're both really great people, and they do a wonderful job, and I'm very appreciative of their efforts. And we're going to keep going and keep going and keep going, because this started a couple of years ago. I was on my cell phone in my bedroom doing my first couple of shows, and now we're on 25 platforms, and we're reaching 8+ million people on KCAA, And we also are worldwide with our podcast, and we're in the top 100 shows in our category in the UK, in Canada, and Australia. And we're growing. And I'm super appreciative of my listeners. Thank you. And super appreciative of my guests. Thank you. And I'm going to keep doing the best job I can for you. So thanks a lot. Guys Radio. We'll see you next week. And as I always like to say, guys, finish first.